Welcome to another obscure Asian story. Today we're going to be talking about one of the worst man-made floods in history. Now you might think that flooding is just a natural occurrence, something that happens because of climate change or other environmental factors. But that's not always the case. In fact, flooding in China's Yellowriver has become 10 times more frequent in the last 1,000 years than in several previous millennia. And it's not because of the climate change. Most of the floods have been caused by human interference. The most massive flood that affected millions of people and is considered one of the deadliest natural disasters of the 20th century occurred at the Yellowriver in June 1938. The Japanese were invading China, and Chiang Kai-shek decided he might stop them by unleashing a flood upon them. The HuangHe is one of the longest rivers in Asia and has been a vital source of water and transportation for thousands of years. But like all rivers, it has its dangers, and throughout history, those dangers have become all too real. The HuangHe is the main river of northern China. The river takes its name from the large amounts of fine yellow sediment that colors its water. The HuangHe has been called China's sorrow because of the millions of people who have been killed by its churning, muddy waters in a long history of dramatic diversions and massive floods. The HuangHe is estimated to have flooded some 1,500 times, causing unimaginable death and devastation. The most devastating floods in history occurred on the HuangHe in 1887, 1931, and 1938. In 1887, the HuangHe River flooded after heavy rain and broke through the dikes. This caused a huge flood that killed between 900,000 to 2 million people. In August 1931, another big flood happened on the HuangHe. It covered a lot of land and killed between 850,000 to 4 million. But even these floods paled in comparison to the man-made disaster caused by Chiang Kai-shek in 1938. During the Second Sino-Japanese War, the Kuomintang had its back against the walls. They were losing the war, and they were running out of options. Anything was on the table to stop the Japanese advances. General Chiang Kai-shek hoped using a strategy from Chinese military history would turn the conflict in their favor. Flooding the Yellowriver, a tragic version of scorched earth tactics. The plan was an attempt to limit the mobility of the Japanese Imperial Army, not by literally scorching it, but by drowning it. So, in a desperate move, the Kuomintang decided to breach the southern dike of the Yellowriver on June 5, 1938, and the flood did indeed succeed in slowing down the Japanese advance. Unfortunately, the military success was only moderate. The civilian cost, however, immeasurable. The tunnels used to breach the dike flooded greater parts of Henan, Anhui, and Jiangsu. The floods covered and destroyed thousands of square kilometers of farmland and shifted the course of the Yellowriver hundreds of kilometers to the south. The Kuomintang made a choice not to warn the villages and towns that the river banks would soon wash away, hoping instead to maintain the element of surprise against the Japanese soldiers. Immediately after the breach, the Kuomintang made a short film of soldiers pretending to try and close the gap. Between this and the massacre in Nanjing in 1937, the Kuomintang hoped to drum up international support and pressure against Japan. The problem was it was not believable that Japan would jeopardize their own military objectives by flooding the easiest route to the Kuomintang's capital. The flood enabled the Kuomintang government and armies to evacuate Wuhan, but the cost of this short-term military success was borne not by nationalist leaders but by China's civilian population. A warning might have given civilians a chance to escape the path of the floods, but no warning was ever issued. Adding to the insult, the nationalist government was slow to provide disaster relief. It seemed that Chiang viewed the peasants of China as simple fodder to maintain his power. In the short term, the breach of the dikes was successful in cutting the railroad and delaying the Japanese advance. The flood protected the HuangHe Railway, which was a major northwest traffic route where the Soviet Union sent their military supplies to the Chinese National Army. Furthermore, the Japanese army had difficulties mobilizing. Thirdly, it crushed tracks and bridges of major railways, preventing quick mobilization of Japanese machines and troops across different areas. military success is not everything. The floodwaters spread over an area of 55,000 square kilometers, destroying crops, homes, and entire villages. It disrupted transportation and communication networks, making it difficult for aid to reach those in need. It caused widespread famine and disease. It's estimated that between 500,000 and 900,000 people lost their lives as a result of the flood, and even more were forced to flee from their homes. Besides the massive death toll, the flooded areas were affected for years to come. The flooded countryside was more or less abandoned and all the crops were destroyed. According to post-war report, floods destroyed 32% of land and 45% of villages in 20 affected counties. Many of the public structures and housing were also destroyed, leaving any survivors destitute. The irrigation channels were also ruined, further adding to the ecological toll on the farmlands. The impact on agriculture in the region was major. The floodwaters destroyed crops and farmland, leaving many farmers without a source of income. This led to widespread famine and malnutrition. In addition to all this suffering, there was also an outbreak of disease. With so many people living in close quarters, diseases like cholera and typhoid spread quickly. It is unsurprising that all of this had a long-term psychological effect on the Chinese population. The impact on the people of the region was devastating. Many lost everything they had: their homes, their possessions, their livelihoods. They were forced to flee with nothing but the clothes on their backs. The Chinese nationalist government tried to provide aid to those in need, but their efforts were hampered by their own destruction of transportation and communication networks. Kuomintang officials hoped that restoring the river would help them regain legitimacy. However, this hope was in vain, as citizens did not forget their suffering. The Chinese Communist Party used all of this to its advantage. It turned flooded areas into operational grounds, recruiting survivors in flooded areas and turning them into guerrilla bases by the 1940s. Attempts to seal the breach and return the river to its former course were made in 1946 by the Kuomintang. However, the dams were again destroyed by large summer flows. Although subsequent repairs succeeded and were eventually completed in March 1947, all the help came too little and too late. The people who have been made into war fodder have already sworn their allegiances to the Communist Party, and the rest remains history. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching!